it's very important you think about what you have covered so that you can try to get your answers. Okay. So what are the things that we have covered that can be a basis for finding the answers? What are some of the things that you have covered? So remember, we have covered approaches to strategy. We have covered approaches to strategy. We have covered the concept of approaches to strategy. How organizations approach the strategic decision-making process. So we covered these approaches. What approaches have we covered? What approaches have we covered to strategy? Do you remember the approaches that we have covered to strategy? How companies can approach the strategic planning process? What approaches have we covered? What have we covered? What alternatives to the strategic planning model have we covered? Not all organizations go step by step, where you start with a mission statement. Remember the rational model that we covered, where you start the mission statement, you do internal analysis, external analysis, develop strategies, implement them. We are saying not all organizations approach the process that way. Emergent strategies. What else? Willing opportunism. So these are options that are available. And if you look at your notes, you'll find these options are there. So you must be able in every situation to think first of all in terms of the approaches to strategy which organizations can follow. Okay. And then we take the rational model itself. Rational model, there's one. What are the three stages of the rational model? Analysis, then choice, and implementation. These are the three. Do you remember this? Do you remember this? So in your exam, when you're looking for situations, always think about, first of all, the approach. And the most common approach is the rational model. Okay. The rational model is a common one where you go step by step in the strategic planning process. That's not the only approach. Research shows that organizations also use other approaches such as emergent strategies, incrementalism, freewheeling opportunism, and all that. And what we're trying to do here is to build a process. When you're looking for an answer, to build a process. Okay. When we come here, we need to know the tools that we use for carrying out analysis. What tools do you use? So the whole of our exam is basically time and again is modeled on this. It's either the examiner wants you to talk about analysis, wants you to talk about the choice, or wants you to talk about implementation. Let's talk about analysis. Let's look at analysis. What do we mean? What do we cover in analysis? So these are tools that we use to analyze the environment. So we're looking at the tools that we use. To analyze the macro environment. Industry environment. And the internal appraisal or the position audit. So this is the kind of thinking that you want to walk out with. To know that one important phase is the analysis. And what we expect you to do for us is to tell us the tools that we use for carrying out analysis. So we've got macro, industry, and position audit. So to analyze the overall environment, what do we use? Analyze the overall environment, what do we use? Analyze the overall environment, what do we? Somebody was giving us an answer there. If we're looking at the wider environment,
we use the Pastel model.
Okay. So if we're looking at that one, or what we call the macro environment, use a Pastel. Okay. What if we are looking at the industry?
For the industry, we use Porter's 5 forces.
Yes. Porter's 5 forces. Okay. That's okay. What of when we are doing a position audit now? When we are doing the internal analysis? When we're doing the internal analysis, what do we use? What are some of the tools we use?
The SWOT analysis.
SWOT analysis can help us.
Yeah, you can also use BCG and Astrich.
Okay. So So when you look at the Astridge and BCG, when you're trying to understand the portfolio, if you want to understand the portfolio that you have, when you're saying you can use a BCG analysis or your Astridge model. And you can argue that, yes, we are talking about an aspect of internal analysis, but you want to leave that one specifically for portfolio. If you want to understand how balanced are we as an organization, okay? So for internal analysis also, we've got other models. What are those other models? Product life cycle. What else? Come again? Value chain. Yeah. We can also do a benchmarking exercise. Okay. So we're saying these are tools that we must be able to use. Why are we talking about this? When the question comes, you must think in terms of this. You must ask yourself, where am I? Are we on the analysis? Are you looking at analysis? So if the question is talking about analysis, then we are saying that my answer will come from one of these. My answer will come from one of these if I'm looking at the concept of analysis. Let's move to when it comes to choice. When it comes to choice, what are the choices that are before us when it comes to strategic choice? What are the choices that we have? What is the menu that we have? What is the menu that we have? Because we want to ask some questions, and that's the approach that we are going to take. We want to find out where was the question, where would we get the answers from? Because we just hit the question without making a reference where our answer could come from. That may cause us problems in terms of marks. That may cause us problems in terms of marks. So we want to ask ourselves, when we talk about strategic choice, what is the menu that is available for us? Okay, the network is poor, but I'm able to hear something there. The network is poor, but I'm able to hear something there. Are we all here? So when the question talks about strategic choice, we're talking about how to compete. How are we going to compete? So an organization should have strategies on how to compete. And we've got the three strategies there: cost leadership, differentiation, or focus. What of direction of growth? which direction are we growing? So the question I'm talking about is direction of growth, which include even withdrawing, diversification, product development, market development. In addition to that, we've got the method of growth, where you can go for an acquisition, organic growth, and we also covered other methods which come here. Now, when it comes to strategic choice, this is quite wide. Because all the strategies that you think of, they'll come here now. All the strategies you think of will come here. Then after that, of course, we need to think about the implementation. How are we going to implement? After you choose, you pick from here. Now we come to implementation. How are you going to implement? Okay. Implementation. So we spoke about strategic choice. Implementation. Yeah. Want to think in terms of what structure are you going to use? What structure are you going to use? How do we organize ourselves? How do we organize ourselves? Do we have the resources? Do we have the appropriate human resource, the fixed assets? Where do we get them from? And also need to think about how are we going to manage the change. Okay, so I want us to be thinking about, as we go through these questions, I want you to be thinking about these things that we have highlighted. Every time you come across the question, ask yourself, am I looking at the issue of analysis? Am I looking at the issue of choice? Am I looking at the issue of implementation? Always think about this so that you have an answer which is objective. Otherwise, your answer will not be objective. We may just be shooting in the air and we just end up with English essays, you know? We may just end up with English essays instead of preparing an answer which is strategic. Okay. So then, let us go back to our questions. Let's look at the questions that we have. Let's look at the questions that we have. Okay, so we come now to the question. Mr. Mutawa recently retired from employment and incorporated a company called Mutawa Investments. Mutawa Investments decided to purchase an ongoing business. Mr. Mutawa had earlier been approached by his former workmate, Mr. Mate, to form a partnership business with him. Explain any 5 risks involved in this undertaking of purchase of an ongoing business Mr. Mutawa decided to buy. You know, some of the papers prepared for this paper, the English is not that good. I'm sure some of you who have practiced papers, you have found that some of the statements are not easy to understand. In an exam, and it's possible you can miss it. Explaining 5 risks involved in this undertaking of purchasing of an ongoing business Mr. Mutawa decided to buy. This one is much better. When we come to the second one, discuss any 5 positive implications that are involved with Mr. Mate's area to Mr. Mutawa. What can you make out of this question? Candidates, what can you make out of this question? Discuss any 5 positive implications that are involved with Mr. Mate's area.
I think it is talking about positive implications of a partnership, because it's a proposal that we came up with.
Okay, fine. So let's go now. Let's start. What are the risks? Now, where do you think, out of your course, where can you find the answers to this? If you want to say, look, this question, where can you relate it to, of those items that we have discussed? Anyone who can start with part A. Where do you think you can get your answers from? Your suggestions? Because that's what you must do. Think about strategic analysis, strategic choice, strategic implementation. Where do you think you can get your answers from?
I think strategic choice.
Where exactly in strategic choice? Where exactly in strategic choice? Yeah, you are right. If you think about the strategic choice, we talk about how to compete, direction of growth, and method of growth. We spoke about acquisitions. Remember an acquisition? One method of growth. Of course, this was, you can say, no, Mr. Piri, but that one is a startup. Yes, the concept is the same. You are a company, now you want to grow. You have already established a business, but how do you move to another level? You can go for an organic growth where you build the business yourself. Imagine you want to start a new business, a new item. You can start from the scratch, isn't it? You can just do an organic growth, or you can buy an entity which is already running. So the point we covered on acquisitions, mergers and acquisitions, what are the disadvantages? What are the risks? What are the advantages? That's where you can get answers. So what are some of the risks of an acquisition? Because like you're buying a business which is up and running already. What are the risks? That's what the question is talking about. Is that okay now? Are we seeing the light now?
Yes.
Yeah, so what are the risks of buying a business which is already running, as opposed to building your own business?
One, reputation risk.
How does reputation risk come in? Think about it. You want to start your own tuition center, you can come and buy the business which Mr. P is running already. Or you can start from the scratch. So what do you mean? What reputation risk are you talking about? You're right, let's go. You're right, reputation risk, but we need to explain that reputation risk. Somebody to support him? What name have we made? What name have we made? That's what we're talking about here. What name have we made? If we have made a poor name in terms of quality, customer service, we are going to inherit. Another risk? Another risk?
Maybe loss of customers may lose things.
Yeah, some
might be.
Yes, following a takeover, some customers may decide to leave. You may lose some customers. If you buy an ongoing business, now you see your answers are now coming. You're now thinking about merging or acquisition. If you acquire another company, there's a lot of risks, such as some customers may run away, some employees may run away because they don't like you. Buying a business also is very costly. You may have to borrow money, a lot of money. So where do you get the money from? So you may have to borrow. You're going to find a culture already there. Are you going to manage that culture? Are you going to manage that culture that you're going to find there? Any other risks? Loss of customers, loss of employees, the finance you need, the culture, the reputation risk. You also need to learn. You've got a lot of learning. You're not starting from the scratch. So you have a lot of learning to do. Okay, good. What of the next item? So you see, you are looking for 5 points and you explain them, but explain them well. We must explain them well. And use shorter paragraphs to explain them. You put a point, loss of customers. What do you mean? How? What does that involve? How will that affect you? Why may some customers leave? Why may some customers leave? Okay. Number 2, 5 positive implications that are involved with the matters area proposal to Mr. Mta. What are the implications, positive implications? Why is the partnership good? Now, where are you coming in here? Where when you look at partnership, when you look at the partnership, in terms of our strategy, where are we in terms of our course? Where was the examiner coming from? Where was the examiner coming from here? He was talking about a structure. And this structure comes under which item? Which item? Implementation. You need a vehicle through which to implement your strategy. So your strategy of starting a new business, you may use a partnership. So what's the advantage with a partnership? Any advantages?
Share of risks.
You're going to share risks. You're not going through it alone. Number two, when you're sick, what happens? You support each other. You're not alone, you support each other. You've got a person who you support. And you're putting together your knowledge. You have friends. Encumbrance, the process of that. So our first item, okay, implementing a strategy, a personal strategy using a business or partnership. Good. Let's make a move. Let's make a move now. Mr. Mukisa, until the first term of last year, worked as director, business development in a privately owned group of companies. The board recently appointed him to the position of manager and CEO of the organization. He has been requested to develop a new corporate strategy and strategies that must stand a test of time and has since sought your counsel. Discuss any 4 functions of corporate. Can somebody tell us about the corporate strategy? What is the focus of corporate strategy? Can somebody please help us with that concept? Corporate strategy, because we need first to understand what we are talking about before you can talk about the functions. So can somebody please shed light on this expression? Corporate strategy, what do you mean?
Corporate strategy talks about the direction and the vision of the company going forward.
Okay, direction and vision of the company going forward.
As well as control.
And control. Let's have more comments. Let's have more comments. I'm happy that the group is very active. Happy that the group is very active. If you go back to work, so you covered corporate strategy. What does corporate level strategy deal with? What are you going to say? I want an explanation which is easy, which anyone can very much understand. Corporate level strategy, what is your focus in this strategy?
Yeah, maybe the focus will be the overall purpose and the scope of an organization.
Okay. We are talking about you are at the top. So what we are talking about here, when talking about corporate level strategy, let's make it very easy for ourselves. Huh? Yeah, let's make it very easy. Let's not complicate it. So when talking about corporate level strategy, what we are saying is that Here is the organization. We've got the head office, or we've got the center. So head office or the center. Or we've got, let's call this also is what we call the parent. So at the head office, what is our focus? Our focus is we're the ones who decide what subsidiaries are we going to have, what strategic business units. We're the ones who are responsible for adding and removing. We're the ones who are responsible for looking around for who should come into the group, who should not come into the group. So at the so we're talking about management activities at the head office. What these people do. So their responsibilities are, one, to ensure that we have got an appropriate portfolio of these businesses that we have. So somebody was right to say, we decide on the type of businesses. Also, of course, one profitable businesses, isn't it? One profitable businesses, those that are performing very, very well, those that are high value. So we've got a role to identify the right type of businesses to get into. We want high performing businesses, profitable businesses. We're the ones who decide where are we going to invest. On top of that, what do we decide? We want to bring in a combination that makes sense. In other words, we want to make sure that there is synergy. There's synergy. By working together, by combining all these is higher value. So we want to make sure there's synergy, there's additional value. So we look for which business to bring in. We look for which ones to take out. We look at how can these work together. We want to make sure that these are working together. These. We want to make sure that all these are working together. These must be working together. We want to make sure that we are using our knowledge properly to service. Are we servicing this? Do we have what it takes? What contribution are we making to each one of these? So we want to make sure that the head office or the corporate center is making good addition to all this. That's what corporate level strategy is all about. So we want to make sure that we've got high performing portfolios. We want to make sure that we are managing these properly so that they support each other. We want to make sure that the head office has got enough skills to support the strategic business units, the SBUs. And we are going to use our knowledge of BCG to continuously evaluate whether all these are appropriate. Otherwise, we'll get rid of some of those. Guys, this is a very common question on your paper. This is a very common question on your paper. This issue of corporate strategy is one that has come on this paper several times. So we're talking about what the head office does. Their role is to bring together subsidiaries, strategic business units, so that we can be a group that is performing well. I hope all of us are in a position now to explain what we mean by corporate level strategy and what activities go on at that level. Let us go to the next part of our question. So we have identified a strategy. Let's say you want to grow by acquisition. That's a strategy. Instead of internal growth, we're going to grow by acquisition. That strategy must be evaluated. The strategy that you have chosen must be evaluated. You don't just go on and implement. No, you must carry out an evaluation. Man, carrying out evaluation involves a lot of things. One of the evaluations that we must done, it may be financial analysis. Financial analysis is evaluation that may have to be done. Now, let us answer this question, which has come several times on the paper. This question has come a number of times on the paper. Three tests. Let's talk about three tests. Three tests can be used to evaluate the merits of one strategy over another and to gauge how good a strategy is. What are these? These three tests, what are they? Are we familiar with them? This question has been repeated several times, and the examiners want you to respond accordingly. So we're going to look at the response that our examining team is looking for to this particular question. So let us look at the response now. I don't think you are seeing my share. I don't think you're looking at my screen. Yeah, now we're back. We're looking at the same screen. So the three are as follows. Let's talk about them. Goodness of fit. Goodness of fit. Yes. Goodness of fit is the first item that we look at. Then the competitive advantage test. Competitive advantage test. And the last one is performance test. So this question has been repeated, and the examining team says this is the answer that they want. Performance test. So competitive advantage test. Goodness of fit test. So we need to carry out this evaluation. Let's start with goodness of fit. A strategy must fit with your situation. What situation are we talking about? You have done your internal analysis, isn't it? You have done your internal analysis, and in your internal analysis, you identified your capabilities, strategic capabilities. So the strategy that you're talking about must fit with your strategic capability. You have what it takes for that strategy. You want to go and foreign, you want to go abroad. Do you have the skills or just wake up, say, I want to go abroad? Do you have the technology? Do you have the skills? Do you have the employees? Competitive, the next item, competitive advantage test. Does this give you a competitive advantage? Does it put you ahead of your competitors? Does it help you to be ahead of your competitors? Does it give you an edge on your competitors? What of performance? In terms of financial performance. Financial performance, will this strategy enhance your financial performance? This strategy, is it going to enhance your financial performance, your profitability? Financial performance in terms of your profitability. So you do your financial analysis and check whether this strategy will improve your financial performance, your liquidity, your profitability. Long-term performance. So you look at both short-term and long-term performance of the company. Long-term, where does this strategy leave you? So short-term and long-term performance. So that is how we evaluate strategies. So when you get a question on this exam, remember it's goodness of fit, competitive advantage, and performance, short-term, long-term financial performance, and also other areas. Is that okay? So I hope all of us have an answer to this very common question. Eh? Yeah, this question is common. Goodness of fit, competitive advantage, and also performance test. Okay, let's move on, guys, to the next item. Next question. Okay, the power basis question, we'll look at it later. Let's deal with this one. An interesting question. Muiz and Chwala are colleagues who recently graduated from a university of the Copper Belt and have been looking for work without success. Muiz, a young woman of 23 years of age, graduated with a credit marketing, while Chwala, age 25 years, obtained a merit. They have approached you to assist them in coming up with a business plan for their wood buying and selling business. Describe any 5 personnel pitfalls Muiz and Chwala should avoid if their business plan is to succeed. Personnel pitfalls. Now the English here can be a challenge sometimes. Huh? Personnel pitfalls. When you look at strategy here, where are we? You remember our areas of strategy? Our areas of strategy. Our areas of strategy. So which one are we looking at here? Which area of strategy are you looking at here? There's analysis, choice, and implementation. Where are we here? Where are we here?
We are on choice.
You want to implement your strategy. You have identified a strategy. You want to buy and sell wood. Now, you need manpower. You need manpower. Manpower is very critical to strategy. For you to implement your strategy properly, one of the things is you need resources. A strategy requires resources. And the resource that we are looking at here, we are looking at the manpower. So what are the pitfalls that you must watch out for? Manpower, personnel issues. What you do watch out for? What dangers? You must recruit the right type of personnel. So on, you must recruit the right type of personnel. If you don't have the capacity, call for some agents to recruit for you. You need employees with the right skills. You need employees that are honest. What else? Avoid the common temptation of simply employing friends, especially family. Be careful with that. Be careful with the numbers as well. What are we seeing some people when they start business? They employ a huge number of people, which creates a problem. You must be ready also nowadays to talk about mentorship programs. It's not just employing people. You must have mentorships, coaching programs well upfront. Yeah, so I want to make sure I get the right type of people in terms of skills, in terms of values such as honesty. You avoid the pitfall of employing friends, the pitfall of employing big numbers, the pitfall of not having a mentorship program in place. These are not the only answers. There's a lot more you can say, depending on what you have seen, what works and what doesn't work. As these partners are quite inexperienced in business strategy, you have been requested to advise on financial strategy in their planned business. Formulate a brief assessment of any 5 such strategies to ensure success in this business. Strategy is quite wide. Yeah. We discussed corporate level strategy. Corporate level strategy. Then we also discuss business level strategy. What does business level strategy deal with? Who remembers? What does business level strategy focus on? Anyone to help us? Anyone to help us?
It focuses on competition, how to compete in a particular market.
Yes. That's a focus. Excellent. Well done. So we focus on how we should compete in a given market. What of functional level strategy? Functional level strategy.
It focuses on the day-to-day running of the business.
Okay, that is true there. That is true there. And in our notes, we have all this information, isn't it? So now when you look at finance strategy, what does it deal with? What are the items that are in our finance strategy?
I think financial control is one of it.
Financial control is one of it. Okay. What else? You have studied it for us.
Choice of financing.
Choice of financing. Good. Good. What else? What else can you talk about? For them to succeed. So what advice? So we can give them advice. Let's look at advice. Several pieces of advice we can give them. Sources of finance. On some sources of finance, what are you going to tell them? So to start with, they must have adequate finance. They need adequate financing. They must not be undercapitalized. And in terms of financing, what are you going to tell them? They need short-term working capital and also long-term. So they must have adequate long-term finance and short-term finance. What else? You need to advise them on capital structure. They must watch out for debt. They must watch out for debt. Debt can be dangerous. Okay? So high levels of debt are very, very dangerous. Financial strategy also deals with control. They need the budget in place. They also need the controls in place, cost control and controls. There's normally missing cash and all those things. So control is very, very important. What of the expenses? They must also be very careful with expenses. They must not commit to huge expenses, no. Hmm? So they must check on expenses. Yeah. Look for suppliers, working capital. Look for suppliers who can support them. They need some suppliers who can give them some terms as they start business. And also they need the skills, they need personnel who can help them. So we need personnel with adequate financial skills support them. So the questions that come on this paper also can be quite good questions. The only thing is that you need to think around your syllabus. You need to think around your syllabus to see that where am I? Am I going to draw my answer from the concept of analysis? Am I going to draw my answer from choice or from implementation? So it's very important that our answer has got a framework or it's got some backing, you know. So we need an answer which has got some backing. Some backing in terms of theories that we've covered. Okay, fine. So that's where we are there. Now, let's go back to our first question. Let's go back to our first question. We have a question here. Use a suitable analytical tool to categorize and describe Unilever's original portfolio of businesses. Describe the strategy that Unilever has been using, its characteristics, benefits, and the risks, justifying your answer accordingly. This question is a little bit unclear. What should have said here is describe the approach to strategic planning. That would have been easier to describe the approach. To strategy. So this is what was supposed to come here, so that you think in terms of those approaches we have discussed. Is it the rational model? Is it emergent strategies, fueling opportunism, or incrementalism? Describe the source of Unilever's sustainable competitive advantage in its industry. Advise newly appointed CEO in terms of the appropriate strategy to implement to ensure long-term survival of the company as a market leader. As a market leader. If the contribution is 50 and the profit before interest and tax, a market value of debt is 50. Profit before interest and tax is 100. Market value of equity is 150. Market value of prior charge capital equals 200. Calculate the financial and operating gearing ratios for this company. I doubt this person is an accountant who prepares the paper, because the way they arrange the ratios here, there are some figures missing, figures not clear. You people have done operational gearing and financial gearing. You know that better arrangement of figures can be given for that. But the point we can borrow here is that we may be asked to do a ratio analysis in evaluating strategy. So when you are evaluating strategy, you may have to do some ratio analysis. And this is just an example of those ratios. the ratios, operational gearing, and also financial gearing. Now the question is, have we read through this question? Have we had time to read through? Team members, have we had time to read through the question? Hello, team members? Not yet. It's a long case study, so I'll give you that homework. Okay. I'll give you time to read through. So I want you to read through the question and jot down the points. You have done very well in section B questions. Jot down the points so that we can discuss this together tomorrow. Okay, so that one, you need to read through, jot down the answers, and then we have a discussion. Let's go to the question that we had skipped here. Analyze any 5 types of power bases which Mr. Hachondo could now use to influence the followers to accept his leadership and improve operations. Mr. Hachondo has been one of those business managers working in the IDC, and he has now been transferred to a number of state-owned companies that have leadership challenges. It has been noted that Mr. Hachondo has used various power bases depending on the nature of the personnel at each organization and has been successful in turning them around. Analyzing 5 types of power bases which Mr. Hachondo could now use to influence the followers to accept his leadership and improve operations. So where are we in terms of strategy here? Where are we in terms of strategy? Remember, there are 3 areas: analysis, choice, implementation. In addition to that, you may also argue that Mr. Perry, also on this syllabus, we have seen that there are also 3 other topics, 3 other areas that we are expected to cover. What are those 3 other areas? We've got risk, we've got corporate governance, we've also got IT. Corporate governance and ethics, what we were looking at yesterday. So I hear you, you are right. Some of the questions will not just be on strategy, which we have looked at so far. They may also be on risk, corporate governance, ethics, and IT. But all these really are somehow interrelated. Now, Mr. Hachondo, what are the power bases that he could use? From a corporate governance point of view, we can say that he's got a legitimate, or what we call organization power. Some people are very good, you know, your position in the organization just gives you power. And some people use it very effectively. So that hierarchy or that structure in the organization is what we call legitimate or legal power, the power that you have been given because of the position. But some people don't use that to influence a situation or leaders. They use reward, where those people who are very loyal, you reward them. The bonuses, training opportunities, attachments, and stuff like that. So, reward power. Maybe it's a man who uses reward, different types of reward. Maybe it's just cohesive. It threatens people with punishment. It threatens people with punishment. And everybody knows that is a disciplinarian. Or another funny one, what you call the referent. Referent. The leadership based on the followers' identification with the leader, where they can identify with him. For instance, look at the national soccer team. If you bring a former player, what happens? If you bring in a former player, what happens? The players may identify with him. Okay? Or you bring a person from the same region. So you put a person, a particular person, then you choose one from that region to be, that's referent power, because they can relate to him, they can identify with him. The other type of power is expert. This guy is a guru, he's just good. He's an expert, he's a professor. So just because he's a professor, he's an expert. So this guy has got talent, he's got special knowledge. So as a result, people respect him. So these are examples of power. We've had this question before. So you can pick these and write on them to explain where somebody's power could come from in the organization setup. Okay, this is where we end, people, today. What do I want you to walk away with? Always think in terms of the breakdown of strategy. Think about analysis, like we started. Think about the choice that we have and the fact that there's so many strategies here. And also, we need to pay attention to implementation. So always think in terms of these. Always think in terms of these when I've got a question, to see where could the examiner be coming from, so that you find the answer which is based on theory that you've covered. In the worst case scenario, if the question is difficult, as long as you can link it to an area and pick a theory from there and apply it, your marks will be given to you. What we must avoid are English essays, where we're not referring to any concepts. We're not referring to any theories or models. No model that you're referring to. And now here, this will cause us problems. The examiner will say no. So much as you are trying to think about the strategic management models, and these models really come from analysis, choice, and implementation. If you want to stray a little bit, think about what are the risk issues, governance issues, ethical issues, IT issues. By the time we finish thinking around this, you'd have an answer which is much more acceptable. Okay, so we've got one question to look at. Let's discuss the modalities just for tomorrow. Yeah. So tomorrow, can you come on board, please, at 11 hours? Can you log on tomorrow at 11 hours? Why? Because I've got a class at 13. I've got a class at 15. So your group starts first at 11. Those other times, I'm doing additional classes. So let's agree on this one. Is that okay?
Yes, Okay with me.
Okay.
Even
Uh-huh.
Mr. P,
Yes, please.
I think I logged in late. This paper is for which sitting? I didn't take note.
Okay, this paper is for which city? I put something on your forum. You check the forum. I've picked these questions and put them there. And this is
I don't
June.
know if I have a problem I don't know if I have a problem with my WhatsApp. I never received things on before.
Are you on? Oh, you see WhatsApp. So you're not on our forum.
I am. Sometimes I would receive some things. Like the last thing I received was when we are asking for CVs of those who would like to go on, is it internship?
Uh-huh.
But when it comes to work, I usually don't receive.
What your name again?
Tamara.
Oh, what's wrong? What's wrong with your? Because like the lectures from last night are posted already. I hope some have seen them already. What we discussed last night is on the forum already.
I haven't received it.
What of the others? Have you received what we did last night?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll just counter check. I'll just check to make sure why may not have been receiving. Yeah. Okay. Right. So this paper is June 2020. It's June 20.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, so we see you tomorrow at 11. You've got a question there to look at. Please tackle the question. Then I also post another question. So tomorrow again, we've got another series of questions that we'll be doing. Yeah. All right, people, we'll see you tomorrow, 11 hours.
Thank you.